Hello everyone once again. So we are going to start the session about Azure Data Factory. This session is mainly going to be a little bit of theory and more of demo so that I can guide you all step by step how you can start using Azure Data Factory and what all things can be done. Definitely I will not be covering each and everything in Data Factory, but I will try to cover as much as possible. Towards the end of the session, in case if you want to learn more about any particular transformations activities, you can definitely drop a note, and then I will try to bring in those things. At least I will try to pick up maybe top 5 topics to cover during my next session. So let's begin with Azure Data Factory now. So in this session, we are going to cover these many topics and subtopics. So you can see here, section 1, we are going to cover how you can create data factory. Then copy activity, that is the most common activity that you definitely want to learn. Then what are pipelines, what are activities. After that, we will be covering linked services. This is again one, you can say the starting point for any data factory pipeline or any ETL process. Next one will be about data sets, then pipeline executions and triggers, that once you have created your linked services, once you have your data set, you have your pipeline, then how you are going to execute it. Then there is something called integration runtime. If any of you are aware of this, it's good. If not, I'm going to cover uh, integration runtime in like some detail in a detailed way. So integration runtime actually will be used when you are connecting through your on-premise machine or anything. There are various types of integration runtime. We'll talk about those. Then we have roles and permissions. Now this is very important. Before you start working on Data Factory, you need to understand what kind of roles are required to start working on Data Factory and what kind of roles or permissions you need to assign to other users who want to start working on maybe your Data Factory that you have created. We'll talk a little bit about pricing, although this is not something that you need to know very hardcore, but still I would like to talk a little bit about this, that how you can actually gauge the cost occurred due to the pipeline that you create. Then last we'll talk about the connectors, like what all connectors are available with Data Factory. And then after that, we will jump to the demo section. In demo section, we will try to cover a little bit about transform data, how you can parameterize. Then we will talk a little bit about security, and then monitor and manage. Then how you can execute your SSIS packages in Azure. I think this topic I will not be able to cover during this session because we will not have enough time. So I will take this session maybe separately. And then we have templates. So let's see how it goes forward, and then we can plan accordingly. Let's jump to the next section. So prerequisites, which is the most important part. So when you are going to create a data factory, first of all, a data factory, you are not going to create any linked services, data sets, pipelines, anything. First, you have to create a data factory on Azure portal. And when you create, this is the first screenshot that you will see. This is the first screen that you will get to see when you will create Azure Data Factory. But there are prerequisites to this. First prerequisite is subscription, that you need to have Azure subscription. In case if you don't have Azure subscription, you can go and create a free account. You can just go to portal.azure.com and you will get option to create free account there. Now next that I mentioned in one of the topics, which is roles and permissions. Now definitely this is a prerequisite before you start working on this, that you need to have at least a contributor role or data factory contributor role. So you can have a contributor role on, if you have contributor role, suppose on resource group level, that is enough. If you are admin, then there is no problem. Admin in the sense you need to, if you are global administrator that you have created your own account, then there is no problem. You will have permission to create data factory. Or else if somebody else you want to give permission to work with data factory, you can assign data factory contributor role. And we will talk about this further. Okay, so these two are the prerequisites before you proceed further with Data Factory. Next one is copy activity, like create Data Factory copy activity. Now this is the most common thing, and initially there used to be like when Data Factory was launched, so copy activity was something like which was available on the first screen. So if I go back to previous screen, you see now you can see there are many things like create pipeline, create data flow, create pipeline from template, and this is copy data. And this was available from the beginning. But now they have introduced even other things. So we'll talk about all those things one by one. But yeah, first thing is copy activity. So what is copy activity? What it does? Copy activity is plain data ingestion from your source to destination. There are multiple attributes to this or multiple properties you can say. You have source. First of all, you define the name, a task name, whatever it is. Then you have to define the source. What is going to be the source for the data factory? Second, you will have to define destination, like where you want to ingest the data to. Then there are some settings. After that, you will get a summary and then you can deploy it. Now, there are other things also that we will see one by one, but these are basic things that you need to understand. And then we will try to check like how you can create sources, how you can create destination and other things. Now, next is about pipelines and activities. Now, first of all, when I say pipeline, so pipeline is a logical grouping of activities that together perform a task. So basically there will be multiple tasks that you want to perform on a particular data set. Then you can create a logical grouping of this, and that is called pipeline. And we will see like how it works. The total like overall flow, it is showing that you have a data set here. Then you can create activity that what you want to do with this, right? So here before just before this slide we spoke about copy activity. So that was one of the activity. And this part like copy activity is being performed on this data set, and this all together combines as pipeline. Okay. Now there are various kind of activities. If any one of you have worked with SSIS packages, which was an ETL tool, which is an ETL tool, not was, which is an ETL tool from Microsoft side that you get when you install SQL Server on your machine. You get option to use even SSIS, SQL Server Integration Services. So there also you had activities like control flow activities and then data flow level activities. Similar way, you have those activities here that you have control flow activities where you can basically you can control the flow, right? What all things you want to do. Take an example for each. Like, do you want to perform for each? Like, you want to iterate through the files. You go through for each. You want to get metadata of the file or any data set. You want to implement if condition. You want to implement lookup activity. So all these things will come under control flow activities. And then you have data transformation. Now in data transformation, you can see all these activities are there. First thing is data flow. Now data flow is something very new to Data Factory, very new in the sense I would say 1 year or maximum 1.5 year old, not very old. Then you have Azure function. Azure function is also one of the resource available on Azure, and that also you can run as a part of Data Factory. Then you have Hive query in case if you work with Hive query and you want to know whether you can run a Hive query directly on Data Factory, then answer is yes. Similar thing, it goes same with Pig, MapReduce, Hadoop streaming, then you have Spark, ML activities is like machine learning activities. Then you have stored procedures. So similar way as you had in SSIS, here also you can execute your SSIS packages, stored procedures directly on Data Factory. Then you have uSQL. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of uSQL, but in Azure, Microsoft introduced something called Azure Data Lake Analytics. In that, you can write code in uSQL. Now, uSQL is a kind of combination of T-SQL and C#. So they wanted to leverage the functionality of C# along with T-SQL, and that's when they formed uSQL. So you can run your uSQL code here on Data Factory directly. Then you have custom activity. There will be many places or many times you will find the use of writing some custom code. Again, I would like to relate it with SSIS packages where you had something called script task, and you could write uh, like um, you can write their .NET code, and I think um, basic code. No, I forgot what is that another one, but you can write .NET code there. So you can use similar technology here, similar method here to go with custom activity. So if you have any .NET activity, you can use that activity to with the existing within the existing pipeline with other activities around a data set. Then you have Databricks notebook, jar activity, and Python activity. So if you are aware of Databricks, so Databricks is actually one, you can say, Spark-based engine optimized for Microsoft Azure Data Platform, and you have the flexibility to create a notebook there. You have jar activity. You can actually create a jar and a Python code there. So, and you can leverage all those things. You can run all those codes here on Data Factory. Okay, so we will see how much we can cover out of these things. And this is the list. I would ask you to pick up any important thing that you want, and then you can put it on chat window, and I will pick top 5 to cover those things in my next session. Okay, so you can just take a look, and then I'll move to the next one. Okay, now let's move to linked services. Now, linked services is the very first thing that you need to create when you are working with Data Factory. Linked services will actually create or links a storage or your source to the data set. Okay, so you see, before you create a data set, you must create a linked service to link your data store to the Data Factory. Linked services are much like connection strings, which define the connection information needed for Data Factory to connect to external sources. Now, there is one example given here. An Azure Storage linked service links a storage account to the Data Factory. Okay, now let me take a pause here before I would like to explain what is Azure Storage account. So in Azure, you have this storage account concept where you can upload all your files, blobs, everything. And that also can be one of the source for Data Factory. For example, that you have a file that you have stored on your blob container. Basically, in storage account, you can have blob containers, and in blob containers, you can have files. Now, suppose you have some files available on blob containers, so that also can become the source for your Data Factory, and that data residing in that particular file can be moved to SQL database through Azure Data Factory. So that is also one of the option, but linked services will create a connection with your storage account, which is available on Azure. Okay, so you can read this example that an Azure storage linked service links a storage account to the Data Factory, and Azure blob dataset represents the blob container and the folder within that Azure storage account that contains the input blobs to be processed. Okay, so when I say input blobs, I am just referring to one file here, but a blob can be of any type. Now, once you have your linked services, then you have to move to datasets. Now, I know the text is big, but still I would like to read out because this gives a good clarity on dataset, like what dataset is and how it is connected through linked services. So a data set is a named view of data that simply points or references the data you want to use in your activities as inputs and outputs. Now this is very important to understand. It is saying simply points or references the data. It means it does not bring the data in memory. And this is very important to understand, that it just creates a connection to your data source. It's not bringing the data in memory. Then datasets identify data within different data stores such as tables, files, folders, and documents. Then again, same example, that your blob dataset. But there is a scenario given below, like to copy data from blob storage to a SQL database. you create two linked services. Okay. Now this is very important to understand. That's why I said there is too much of text here, but still it's better to go through it. Now to copy data from blob storage to SQL database, you create two linked services. Now the question is why two linked services we need. So one linked services will be for your Azure storage, which is the source, and second linked services will be for Azure SQL database, which will be your destination. So irrespective of your source or destination, you need to create linked services. So that is the very first step. Then create two data sets. Now, you know why you are creating two data sets? Because one data set will be your source data set and another data set will be your destination data set. Now, Azure Blob dataset, which refers to the Azure Storage Link Service, and Azure SQL Table dataset, which refers to the Azure SQL Database Link Service. Okay, now I think it makes sense that you have two link services and you have two datasets. Although you don't have, suppose this is a new SQL database, you don't have any data there, but you create a dataset because at least you have a schema created there. Now, again, this is very important thing. If you are planning to copy data from a file to Azure, like to Azure SQL table through Data Factory, then first of all, you have to make sure that schema is ready. If schema is not ready, Data Factory is not going to create schema for you on fly. So this is very important that you need to have schema on your uh, uh, Azure SQL database. Okay. Now, Azure Storage and Azure SQL Database linked services contain connection strings that Data Factory uses at runtime to connect to your Azure Storage and Azure SQL Database respectively. The Azure Blob dataset specifies the blob container and blob folder that contains the input blobs in your blob storage. The Azure SQL table dataset specifies the SQL table in your SQL database to which the data is to be copied. So as I told you that it will represent the table, although it does not have the data right now, but the table needs to be there. Okay, this is very important. And below is one of the flow as an example, like same scenario where you have a data set, you have activity. In our case, it will be copy activity, and this is connecting through link services. Okay, and this entire thing will be a part of pipeline that you can schedule, you can monitor, you can manage everything. Okay, now let's go to the next topic, which is pipeline execution and triggers. Now you have your linked services, you have your data sets, you have your pipeline created. Okay, what next? Next one is you have to schedule the job. Definitely you don't want to go and run that job manually every time. So you want to schedule it. But in this data factory, in case of data factory, you get three options. First option is schedule trigger, where you can just go and define the timeline when you want to run this job. It could be once in a day, once in an hour, once a week. I'll show you what all options are available, but you can schedule it. Okay, so one example they have given here, that weekly or Monday at 5 p.m. and Thursday at 9 p.m. So all these flexibilities are there that you can choose which particular day you want this job to run and what particular time. Then there is another tumbling window trigger. I'm not sure if you guys have ever worked with Stream Analytics in Azure. So Stream Analytics gives you these concepts of tumbling window and hopping window. And so basically tumbling window and all, like where you are getting the streaming data and you want to keep a tumbling window, in the sense your job is running for 5 minutes and you want to um, basically you are getting the streaming data suppose every 5 minutes and you want to keep a tumbling window of 3 minutes so that you don't lose the data. Okay, you can read in more detail about tumbling window, that how it works, but this option was not available earlier in Data Factory. Recently they have added, recently in the say it has become, I think, more than 2 years now, but this is a very good feature which was required in Data Factory. And the last one is event based trigger. That is also very important. This is also a new feature. Like an event based trigger runs pipelines in response to an event, such as the arrival of a file or the deletion of a file in Azure Blob Storage. Now this one is very important. Reason I will tell you what used to happen sometimes, that uh, suppose you want to check that you want to read the file when the file arrives in a blob. So earlier this option was not available, so it used to become difficult that what frequency we should keep. Okay, so one thing was like we can schedule it for maybe every minute to check, uh, like if the pipe any new file is coming. But the problem was every time you are running the pipeline, you are incurring the cost, and that might not be required. Maybe you are getting a file just once in a day, right? So this was a very difficult decision to make, that what time we should schedule the pipeline. But this new feature, event-based trigger, has solved this problem. Okay, so in today's session, we are going to take schedule trigger as example, and I'll show you the demo. Then comes integration runtime. Now, integration runtime is again a very important thing, that in case if you want to use uh, a file available on some virtual machine, then how you will connect your virtual machine, which is on a different network, to your Azure, right? So for that, you will need integration runtime. You can go and install integration runtime on that virtual machine and then connect the source here. I connect it to Azure Data Factory, and we will show this demo. But there are different types of integration runtime available, and that also I'll show you while going to the demo part. But here you can see this image. I'm not sure if you can see this image, but I have copied this image from a Microsoft documentation site, so I can take you there directly. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so this is the image, and let me try to make it big. Yeah, can you see this image now? I think now you will be able to see it. So you see there is Data Factory here. Then there are three types of integration runtime that you can see. One is integration runtime Azure. This is integration runtime Azure SSIS, and this is integration runtime self-hosted. And this boundary defines that anything beyond this boundary is on-premise, and anything above this boundary is cloud. So here it is showing that integration runtime self-hosted you need to install on-premise. Now this is very important, that if you want to access data from any virtual machine which is on a different network, you need to install integration runtime on that virtual machine, not on your cloud. So you install it, and then you will be able to establish the connection between that virtual network and Azure. In this diagram, you can see the source is on cloud and destination is on-premise. But during today's session, I am going to show the source will be on-premise and our destination will be Azure. So we will talk about that. I'll show you that, like how it works. Next one is integration runtime Azure SSIS package. So one example that I gave you, that if you have any existing SSIS package, you can just bring in that SSIS package here and you can run it directly. But for that, you need integration runtime Azure SSIS. Now today I am not going to cover this topic because this itself is a very wide topic. Maybe we can talk about this in a different session. Now, third one is integration runtime Azure. So if anything is there on Azure platform itself and you want to interact with Azure resources, any different Azure resources, then you go with integration runtime, which is by default. So this you don't even need to set up. When you create Data Factory, you will see auto resolve integration runtime will already be there. So this is there, but there is one more thing here. You see Azure Virtual Network. So there is a possibility that virtual machine is on your Azure itself, but still you will need to have integration runtime installed. You see this one, that is the same Azure Virtual Network, but still you need to install integration runtime on this virtual machine, and then you will be able to establish this entire connection. And same thing again here about SSIS packages. They are saying this is on Azure virtual machine, and maybe you want to move that SSIS package to on-premise or from on-premise to this. So in that case, again, you will install integration runtime for SSIS on Azure VM. So these are different possibilities that you can see while working with integration runtime, and you have to be very careful in choosing that which integration runtime you are choosing. In case if you are just going for, if you just want to bring some data from your virtual machine to Azure, then in a simple way you can just go with integration runtime self-hosted, and that's it. You will be able to establish the connection, and I'll show you how you can do that. Okay, let's jump to the demo. Sorry, let's jump to the session now. We will go to the demo after some time. Okay. So this is about integration runtime. Let's go to next one, roles and permissions. So this is same thing that I already explained, that to create data factory instances, the user account that you use to sign into Azure must be a member of the contributor or owner role or an administrator of the Azure subscription. So if you are going to create your own Azure subscription, it means you are the owner, right? You are the global administrator of the Azure account. Then you will have definitely access to create data factory or do any kind of work on data factory. Second thing, to create, manage child resources for data factory, including datasets, linked services, pipelines, triggers, and integration runtimes, the following requirements are applicable. One is that you must belong to the data factory contributor role, and I'll show you how you can get the data factory contributor role. And next one is again contributor role at resource level or above is sufficient. Okay, and I'll show you during the demo that how you can uh, do this. Okay, now next one that I was telling about pricing. This is something if you want to understand, it's fine, but this is not like a very important thing to go through. But before coming to this slide, I wanted to show you something called Azure Price Calculator. So during my last session, I spoke about Azure Price Calculator in brief, but I would like to bring this again today because before jumping to this part, that how you can calculate pricing, you need to give a look at this also. So let's see, not integration. Okay, let's search here, data factory. Now you see, you can search and then you can select this. The moment you select, this will be added. And now you can see here, the data factory has been added. You can select the region wherever you want, like data factory is available in all these regions that you can see. There is one more thing here, that Azure Data Factory version 1 and version 2. So right now, whatever we are talking about, everything we are talking in terms of version 2. The version 1 was there long ago. Now, most of the people are going with version 2 because of many other new functionalities being added here. So it depends on you, like what you want to choose. And then service type, it's data pipeline or integration services like SSIS that I was telling you. So here we will go data pipeline. Now here you have integration runtime, then orchestration. It is asking activity runs in thousands. How many activity runs will be there? Data integration unit. How many executions will be there? Like you have to mention in R. Then you have pipeline activity execution hours, external pipeline activity execution hours. So once you give all these details, it will give you approximate price. Okay. Now again, this one is for Azure Integration Runtime, which is by default. As I told you, when you will create Azure Data Factory, by default you will have Azure Integration Runtime. And if you are trying to copy data from some on-premise virtual machine or any other virtual machine, then you will have to go with self-hosted integration runtime. And in that case, the calculation, like the entire calculation will be different. If you are going to use data flow, then again these calculations will be different. Then you have data factory operations, read write operations, monitoring operations. So all these things, like you can see, based on the pipeline that you create, you will be able to understand that how much time each activity is taking, how much time on pipeline is taking, and then based on that, you can give the details here. Another thing, when you are new, definitely you will not know how much time a pipeline is going to take. So it could be a tough decision for you to make, that how much time one pipeline is going to take, and that's fair. So if you have a good confidence, like if you have gone through many pipelines, different types of pipelines, then this will be helpful for you to understand what is going to the cost. But overall, if you see the cost, it's not very huge. Everything is like nothing is above $1 also per unit charges. So it's not going to cost you a lot. So even if I leave my data factory running for entire month, I don't like my subscription amount does not get over. So that's perfectly fine. It will not cross even like $30-40 for you. Okay, so this is about pricing, but let's jump to slide again and how you can calculate one example here. So in this particular example, the input data set is S3. Now S3 is again a storage account on Amazon. Like I was talking about Azure storage account, this S3 is on a storage account on AWS. So this is going to be the source. You have copy activity, then you have output dataset, which is Azure storage. So basically you are trying to bring data from AWS storage account to Azure blob storage. Now in this thing, how many activities are involved? Let's try to check. Like create linked services. So now you definitely know that how many linked services you need to create, because there are two data sets available here. One is input, one is output. So we will create two linked services. So based on that, it will create two read write entity. Then again, you have data sets. Then it is saying four read or write entities, two for dataset creation and two for linked services references. Okay, so this way you can compare that based on number of datasets, you can see how many read write entities will be there. Then create pipeline. Again, here you will have three read or write entities, one for pipeline creation and two for dataset references. Then you have get pipeline because you have just one pipeline here, so one read write entity. Then run pipeline, there will be two activity run, one for trigger and one for activity runs. Now because we have only one activity here, that's why it is saying one activity run and one for trigger. Basically you will schedule the trigger, so based on that it is telling you that. And then copy data consumption, execution time 10 minutes. So it is assuming that execution time will be 10 minutes. So 10 into 4 Azure integration runtime, 4 is this. Okay, and then default sorry, that is default DIU setting, which is 4. And then again, there is one article, I will definitely try to attach this URL in the video. Then you can go through this, like what is this DIU. And then you have monitor pipeline, so there will be only one run occurred, so there will be two monitoring run, one for pipeline and one for activity. And this is again just because there is one activity, so it is saying one for activity run. If you have multiple activities, there will be more. Okay, so based on this, you will do all the calculation here. Now, give me one moment. I wanted to show you one more thing. Yeah, so I have taken this example from here, and here is the calculation. Okay, so in this calculation, this one is picking all the information from this that we had on our slide, and then it is doing all the calculation. Data factory operations is 0.0001 and this is the calculation for that. Read write 10. You can see read write 1 here, 3, 4, 2. So total 10 read write operations. So here it is 10. This one. Then monitoring 2. Here we had 2 monitoring. So 2 monitoring. Then pipeline orchestration and execution. Again you have activity runs. Then how many activity runs do we have? We have 2 activity runs. So you can see here 2 into 001, like 0.001. Then you have data movement activities. Then this is based on time for 10 minutes. So this is the calculation. So this is not a very important thing that you should be knowing, but it's okay. Like if you really want to give one exact like approximate to the customer that how much it is going to cost, then maybe you can get into this detail. Otherwise, you can just go to Azure Price Calculator, and from here you can give a brief amount that okay, this is going to be approximate price. Like here, if I go without with all the defaults selected, it is saying it is going to cost me $0.75. Okay, and this is I think $0.75 per hour or something they will give here. Okay, this thing we can check in detail, but I think this is based on per hour. Okay, so this is about pricing. Now let's go back to our slide. Yeah. Now this is about connectors. So there are many connectors. Like Data Factory supports many sources or many destinations. So this is just a snapshot, like where I'm showing what all things it is supporting, but this is just a snapshot. I'll show you like how many types of data sources or destinations it will support. So this is just an example, and these are supported file formats: Avro, uh, binary format, delimited text format, JSON format, ORC format, or Parquet format. So it supports all these type of files. So in case if you are talking to any customer and they are worried about any particular file type, then you know that whether it supports or no. Okay, so this is the end of this particular section. I would like to take a pause here, and if anybody has any question, you can let me know. There is one question by Zubin. From your experience, if we had a chance of running data syncs daily, weekly, or monthly, is there a cost advantage to having more or fewer data runs? It's always better, Zubin, to have fewer data runs because more data runs will cost you more. But if the requirement is asking you to run it daily, then you go ahead with that. But if the requirement is asking you to go with like maybe monthly is also fine, then go ahead with monthly, because every time you are going to run it, it is going to cost you. And as I gave the example to you from the price calculation, you know, every time you are going to run it, and every the calculation is based on every 10 minutes. So every time it will run, there is a cost involved. So if it is not required, don't run it. There are many people who try to run the pipelines like every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but they can try to optimize it. If it is not necessary, don't run it every time. Okay, the another question is by Hartran. Can we have managed integration runtime created in our own VNet, like self-hosted integration runtime? Yes. So, and I am going to cover this in the demo, so that will be helpful for you because I have created a virtual machine for you guys, and I have installed integration runtime there. So I'll show you step by step that how you can install it there, and you can access files directly from there. Any further question? Okay, so I don't see any further question here. If you have, you can just type in here and we will take those questions towards the end of our session. Okay, so we'll jump to the next section now. So our next section is mainly about demo. So I just have one slide in this particular section and then we will jump to demo. So we have uh, basically transform data. For transforming data, we have different environments, like we have compute environment where you can create a linked service for the compute environment and then use the linked service when defining a transformation activity. Okay, and in that they are saying there are two types of environment supported by Data Factory. One is on demand and one is bring your own. On demand is something that will be given directly by Data Factory, that you don't have to go ahead and create something separately for this. So they are saying the computing environment is fully managed by Data Factory. It is automatically created by Data Factory service before a job is submitted to process data and removed when job is completed. You can configure and control granular settings of the on-demand compute environment for job execution, cluster management, and bootstrapping actions. So most of the job like will be on demand, but in case if you want to leverage some features like where you have suppose some SD Insight activity, and I was showing you the activities related to SD Insight like you Hive, Pig, MapReduce. So in that case, you have to define linked services for those environments in your data factory, and then you can start using that. So that's why there are two types of compute environments, and then once you have this compute environment ready, then you can start working on your data factory. So right now in this session, I'm going to focus on demand, and I'll take another session on this bring your own. Now, this is again a very big topic where you can use Hypig and anything you need to have is inside cluster. There are many other things, many other aspects also for this one. So let's focus on demand today. So I'm going to end the slide here, and now rest of the things, everything will be on portal. So let's close all these things and um, jump to this portal. Now, before jumping to the session, I would like to say this. This is one website, data.gov, that I use. I think most of you are aware of this. You can use this website to download some sample data or some previous data which is available publicly to play around with this. So I've used one of this data, which is passenger injuries and injury rates. So I used this data here. I have downloaded and I have saved it on my machine. Okay, so this is first thing that I have done. So maybe if you want to learn, you want to play around with this is a good website where you can go for data. Next thing, I have created a separate resource group for this demo purpose, which is RG EUS ADF demo. So RG is like resource group, EUS East US is my region, ADF Azure Data Factory, and this is demo. And here you can see there are so many resources created, and all these resources are created only for this particular demo. And here is the data factory. But before going to that, you need to understand the permissions also. So let me go to my subscription, and you need to be very careful here that how you can give the permission. If you remember, this was one of the prerequisite that you need to have a certain permission to work with data factory. Let's go to subscriptions. This is my subscription, and here I go to IAM, add a role assignment. Now here it will show you who all are the users. So here I am the only person available, so it is not showing any other users. But if you have any other person who are available in your Active Directory, it will show up here. You can select any one of those person and then select a role. So as I said, either you can be a global admin, so there is one option. Okay, it won't show here because initially it will show I am the global admin for this account. That is one thing. Another one is owner contributor. So if you are a contributor, then there is no problem. You will have all the access to work with Data Factory. Or else, if you want specific role to be given to any user, then there is Data Factory contributor. So you can give this Data Factory contributor role to a particular user, and then that user will have access to work with Data Factory. Okay. Now this is one prerequisite. There is one more prerequisite that uh, I did not mention during the demo because that's not 100% mandatory, but that's good to have. So this is my data factory portal, and I will come to all this thing one by one, that how did I come to this particular page. But before going to that, I wanted to show you this GitHub. I don't know how many of you are comfortable with GitHub, but this data factory has integration with GitHub. Now, GitHub is a source control repository where you can have multiple versions of your code, and there, if you have like multiple team members and they want to work on the same pipeline, then you can maintain that versioning with other team members, and that way it becomes very easy for you to work with like hundreds of team members on the same pipeline or on the same data factory. And for doing that, first of all, you need to have a GitHub repository. You should have access to this. Okay, so right now this is my GitHub repository and I have given access to this one. So when you will create this data factory pipeline, it will ask you to give access to GitHub, and then it will allow you to do this. If you don't have permission, then there is one more thing. You can go to home. Sometimes you will see this copy activity is disabled. This thing is disabled, configure SSIS integration. So in that case, you can just go to Git, and if you want to work immediately that you have to work and it doesn't matter whether you have access to Git or not, then you can go ahead and remove Git from here, and then you will be able to work with this. Now, these things are important to understand because sometimes when you start working and you get stuck somewhere and you don't know, you don't understand what is the problem, right? So these things are really important to understand you, and you have to make sure when you see these details that you have access to this particular Git control. Okay, so I have access now. So let's go back to home and try to create a data factory. Although I have a data factory created here for the demo, but I would like to show you how you can create. So I clicked on that plus, it will try to create a new particular resource from Azure portal, and I can search for data factory. And you see the first one, data factory. You can see the details here. Sorry. You can see the details here about data factory, your overview. Then there are some other details about plans and all whatever things you can do. Then there are some links that you can refer. There are some screenshots here. Okay. So if you want, you can go through these links. Click on create, and now you can give a name. So for example, ADF demo. Okay, ADF demo is not available. Make it like anything. Normally I give it this way, that ADF region and then application, like any application. So this one is ADP demo, like Azure Data Platform demo. So you can give this name, and most of the cases these names will be unique because this will be specific to your application. And here I said about version 1 and version 2. So version 1 is older one where you did not have the flexibility for drag and drop. Everything was like a JSON script. So if you are comfortable with JSON script, you can go ahead with V1. In this case, I am going to go ahead with V2. Here it will ask you to select the subscription. So you have access, like for me, I have only one subscription, so it is showing me this. And then resource group. So I am going to select this resource group that I have created for or this particular session. Location, I don't know why randomly it is showing me Brazil South, but that's fine. I can go ahead and select East US. And then here you see this option, enable Git. This is up to you. Either you can enable or you can keep it disabled. If you enable it, it will give you the flexibility to work with your team members. So basically it will give you the option for your source code versioning, and it makes the work easier for everybody, right? So here you can give Git URL, but let me show you this. One second. I'm going to my GitHub to show you that how you can provide the details there. Mhm. Okay. So this is my GitHub, and this is the GitHub name. Okay. So you can go to this. It is asking for Git URL. Then pick up this URL, paste it here. Now must be of the format GitHub account name. So let's remove this. Okay. So this is your URL, repo name. Now my repo name is this, ADF EUS demo. Okay. Now branch name, if you have any branch, it is fine. Otherwise, by default, it is master. So I'll give master. Root folder, if you have any folder created for this file, otherwise you can just give slash. And you can do this, and that's it. You can click on create and your data factory will be created. So I hope this was very easy. There's nothing complicated here. You are just providing all the details. You are selecting the version, then you are providing Git repositories. If you don't have Git, you can just disable it and close it. That's it. Now, suppose I have already created, because I already have, I don't want to waste your time. That's why I just kept it created already. So once you create your data factory, you will see this screen. And below it will show you all these pipeline runs, because I already ran these pipelines for you for the demo purpose. And you can see all these monitoring here. Okay. Now But on this screen, you will not see anything related to coding. Like you cannot code here. Now this is a documentation. You can go to this documentation to learn more about it, but you have to go and click here author and monitor. So let me go to this. So once you click this, it will come to this page. Okay. And if I was not already on this page, it would have asked me again access for this Git repository, which is fine. So right now I'm here, and on this screen you can see there are various things. First one is create pipeline. You have create data flow, create pipeline for template, copy data, and configure SSIS integration. And here you see first one is home button, then edit button, and here is monitor button. So let's go to we are right now we are on home. Let's go to edit. So once you come here, you will see this screen. So now you know how to reach to this screen. Okay, uh, just give me one moment. Yep. Now here you see there are various things that I already spoke about: pipelines. Then you have data sets. You have data flows. I have not created any data flow right now. Templates, I have not created any template right now, so leave it. And then here you see you have connections and you have triggers. So if I click on connections, you see there are these connections, and these are called linked services. Okay. And right next to that, you can see integration runtimes. Now, if you remember, I mentioned something about integration runtime, that if you want to connect to your any virtual machine on any virtual network, or you want to connect to your on-premise, then you need to have a integration runtime installed. Now you can see two. One is auto resolve integration runtime. This is Azure integration runtime by default, and this is something that I created for this demo, and I'll show you how did I create this. And then last thing is triggers. So you have all the pipelines, and then you create your triggers. Triggers for pipeline. So basically which pipeline has to run at what particular time. So let's begin with a normal copy activity first. So I'm going to copy activity. It will pop up with one screen. Okay, it did not, although it's bringing me here. So that's fine. So here I can do one thing, go here and click on this pipeline and click on this move and transform. You will see copy data. So this copy data is actually copy pipeline activity. You can drag and drop here. Okay. But before doing this, I need to have all my source, destination, linked services, everything in place. So let's delete this thing for now. Let me get rid of this and start from the very first thing. Now, if you remember from our previous conversation, the very first thing that we need is linked services. Now, linked services, my first demo is going to be copy data from a blob to Azure SQL database. Now, I'll show you my blob. Um, so this is Azure Storage Explorer. You can connect to, you can download this. It is available on public sites. You can download this tool, and then you will be able to connect to storage account. And how do we create storage account? Let me show you that also. So you can go to again create a resource and search for storage account. Okay, if you search this, it will pop up blob file table. You can click on create, then it will ask you to fill some details here. In this case, I'm choosing this. You can give a particular name. You can select location. Again, here you have something called storage type. It can be V1, it can be V2 or blob storage. I'm not going to talk in detail about this. And replication, you can keep a normal locally redundant right now for this demo purpose. Otherwise, there are various options available. So we can talk about this in detail in some other session, but not today. So you can create this storage account. And once you create it, let me get rid of this. And because I have already created this for you, let me go to this. and this is the storage account. So once you create your storage account, it is created, you will be able to see this thing. Now how you can connect to this, that you can go to Storage Explorer, and if you are already connected here, it will ask you to connect. Okay, or so you can see, you can go to connection, and you can choose multiple options here. Either you can give Azure account, or you can give a connection string, or you can give storage account name and key. So I would like to show you this option, the display name, suppose test account name. Now how will you give account name? So this is your account name. Okay, now account key. So right now I have not given any account key. Now let me give the account key here. So you go to access keys, and here you have keys, primary key, secondary key. So I am just going to copy this, paste the key here, and then next, and that's it. You will be able to connect. Okay, so that way you will be able to connect here, but that will go to your default account. This will not be connected to any of your Azure account, but otherwise you can just go and click on Azure and sign in from here. Then it will be able to pull out all the storage accounts here. So I have created this. Let's go back. I have created a container. In that container, I have this particular folder, uh, ADF demo blob, and I have this file here. Now, same thing you can see on this portal, and same thing you can see on Storage Explorer. This is the file that I downloaded from this public site, data.gov. I think I closed it. Yeah, so this data I downloaded from data.gov. And one more thing, when you download the data, make sure you check the CSV file first. Sometimes it will have some additional content. Uh, oh, just 1 second. Arzu has asked one question. Hi, Prashant, can you run the copy activity as a part of pipeline to copy data directly from on-premise SQL Server DB to Azure SQL DB? Yes, Arju, and I am doing the same thing. So this is immediately after this demo, the next demo is about on-premise SQL Server, sorry, on-premise file to SQL. But you can do the same thing using on-premise Azure SQL also, on-premise SQL Server also. I'll show you that as well. Okay, so yeah, this is the storage account, this is the file, and I was saying whenever you are downloading any file from data.gov or any public site, make sure the file is in correct format, because if it is not, the process will fail. So that is the very first important thing. And let me show you this file, how it looks. You can just double click on this, or you can download. Okay, so this is the file. It has year, and then passenger fatalities, passenger serious injuries, and all these details. So you can see this file. And now this is about the source. This is going to be a source for copy activity. Next thing is my destination. So for my destination, again, I have created Azure SQL database for you. So let me go here, not here. So this is my Azure SQL database that I have already created. And you can go to my previous session video to see how you can create this Azure SQL database. There I have definitely covered almost everything. Okay, and then in my last session, I used SQL Server Management Studio. 1 second. Yeah, I use SQL Server Management Studio to connect to this SQL Server. But today I am going to use Azure Data Studio to connect to this SQL Server. Now this is Azure Data Studio. This is also available publicly, so you can download and you can start working on this. So right now you can see I had already run the pipeline. Data is already there. So what I will do, I am going to truncate it for you. Um, yeah. Okay, so I just truncated this table so that this one, and there is one more table. So let me truncate that as well. Okay, so now I don't have any data in this table. I have already created the schema as I told you. Oh, sorry. As I told you, you need to have schema in place. If you don't have, then pipeline will fail. Okay, so I have schema ready, but I don't have any data in this table, and this is my destination. Okay, now let's go back to Azure portal and let's go back to Data Factory now. So I have all the prerequisites. I have my source, I have my destination, but now I have to define source and destination here. For that, first of all, I need to create a linked services. This is the very first step, guys. So remember this first, you have to create linked services. Now, linked services, my source is blob. So I'll search blob here. It will give me blob storage, continue, and you can give a proper name here. Next one, you can see connect via integration runtime. As I told you already, there is auto resolve integration runtime. This is about Azure integration runtime, which comes by default because our source is also an Azure, destination is also Azure. Now, authentication method is account key. Then here you can give connection string or you can use Azure Key Vault. So if you know about Azure Key Vault, it's good. Even if not, I'll just give you small uh, detail about this. So in Key Vault, you can store your credentials so that you don't have to expose your credentials anywhere on Data Factory or in any other resource. So in Key Vault, you store your credentials and then you use Key Vault to access those credentials against any resource. So you can use any of those. For now, I'm going to go ahead with connection string directly. You can select your subscription, select your storage account name, and because I have this storage account name under same subscription, so it will pop up here. Otherwise, you can go and enter these details manually. So you have to enter storage account name and the storage account key. And now you know how you can get access to account name and account key. As I showed you that you can go to storage account and you can go to keys. So this is your name and this is your key. Okay, so you know this step now, so you can provide those details and you'll be able to connect to this. So for now you do this and then you can click on create. So now I am not creating this, and but before doing that you can do even this test connection, that everything is fine, connection successful. I'm not going to create it because I have already kept it created. Okay, so this is my source and this name I had given ls source blob eus demo. Now this is one linked services. Now you have to create another linked service. So let's go for another one. Another next link service is for destination. My destination is SQL. So when I search SQL, you see all these options are popping up. So I can click on Azure SQL database and continue. Now again, you see here, this is auto resolve integration runtime. And once more, you can see that either you can select directly from your own subscription or you can enter these details manually, right? So how will you enter these details manually? That you go here, you go to SQL database, you click on this and then give this detail, you give this database name. So you can see database name here also. Oh, sorry. This is my database and this is the server. Yeah, this is my server name and this is my database name. So I can just give this database name. Even if you don't copy, it will show you there. So this is database name, my authentication. So I'll give my username, password, and this is the password. And again, same thing. Either you can give the password directly or you can use Azure Key Vault for this. And I'll go to test connection and connection successful. So this way you will be able to create your linked services for SQL and for your destination. So this is done. I'm going to discard it because I already have it here. Now this is done. So link services for source and destination. My next step is datasets. Okay, let's go to dataset and you can see I already have these things created, but still we'll go step by step. Go to new dataset and once again I will search for blob, continue, and this time it will ask you what kind of blob it is. So in my case this is delimited text. You can see all these things, it will support different types of files. So I am selecting delimited text and then it will ask me linked service. So you remember that we just now created linked services for blob and this is the one, right? So because I had only one linked services connected to related to blob, that's why it showed me only one. If you have many linked services, it will show you all, and then you can select any one out of those. You select this, then it will ask you for path, right? You you don't have to enter manually because you can do something wrong, spelling mistake or something. So you can just click on browse. It will show you. Then in my case, this is this one, and this is the file. So you see this is picking up this file directly from here. So I did not have to do anything manually. It is coming directly here. Okay. So click on OK. Now you have this is the container name. Okay, let's compare this. This is the container name here, and this is the file name. And that's it. Now they have sample file and from connection. So in this case, we are going to pick from connection. And then you can click on OK. Okay, so once you will click on this OK, your dataset will be created. So in this case, again, I already have a dataset. So let's discard it. Now another dataset you have to create for SQL. Now in my case, this is Azure SQL database. Go ahead. We already have a linked services here. So you can see. And table name it is asking for. I have two tables created here. Now I'm picking up this example. Okay. Passenger injury rates. So this is the table. And then again, you can click on OK. And then it will create dataset for this table. So once again, you can see these things are very straightforward. You don't have to do anything. You are just providing the credentials and you are able to pick whatever you want. So good. So we have here now all the files. So we have data source, this one. This is what I created. So you can see this is the source data set. Once it is created, you will see this screen. Then you will see connection. All these connections you can see here. And then you have schema. So it has picked up all the schema from here. Okay. Now remember one thing. One more thing that you have to remember very carefully, because sometimes we make this mistake. If you don't enable this first row as header, if you are using CSV file, even though you have header in your CSV file, it will understand this data factory will understand that you don't have a header, and it will allocate a default column names here. So you see this one, column 1, column 2. This is default. This is not the column names that I have on my CSV file, right? But because in the first run I had not selected this, so it created this schema itself. Okay. So you have to understand this thing. This is very important, and then you can select other things also as per your requirement, as per your CSV file. So this is about source. Now let's jump to destination. My destination is SQL. So I think name is pretty much clear for you guys. DS destination SQL, right? So this is my destination. Again, same thing. You go to connection. You can see the link service and then table name. You can click on this preview data here to check if there is any existing data in the table. And right now, because it's empty, it's not showing anything. And again, here you can do test connection to check if everything is working fine. And here is the schema that we have defined. So your source is ready, your destination is ready. So your data set is ready now. Next one is pipeline. Now again, I already have a pipeline, but still we will try to create a new pipeline here. Now when I try to create a new pipeline here, I have this. The moment you create a new pipeline, you will be able to see one new window here called activities. And these are the activities I was telling about, that either you will have like control flow activities or you will have data transformation activities. So in this particular case, I'll just show you one by one what all activities you can see here. This is Azure function. I gave a brief about it. This is again batch service where you can write your custom .NET. This is Databricks where you can bring your notebook, jar, Python. This is data lake analytics. If you remember, I spoke about uSQL. And then these are some general things like append variable, delete activity, execute pipeline. Execute pipeline is something that you already have a pipeline and you want to execute as a part of master pipeline. So you can go ahead with that. Then get metadata. Uh, and this uh, get metadata, and there are other couple of things I'm going to cover in my next week's session, where you will learn how to extract millions of files using Data Factory. So I'm going to cover all these things in my next week's session. Then there is execute SSIS package, that if you already have an existing SSIS package and you want to run on Data Factory. So remember this thing, what happens with many of the customers, they are already using on-premise SQL Server and they have SSIS packages for their ETL operations. So the biggest problem that they have, what happens if I try to go to uh, Azure, my all SSIS packages will become useless. So to take care of that, you need to ensure them that you don't have to make any changes. You can bring in all your SSIS packages to Data Factory. But in long run, it's recommended that you move everything to Data Factory instead of just get rid of SSIS packages. But to begin with, you can just jump to SSIS packages. Okay, so that is one. Then you have set variable, you have web, right? So basically, if you want to call any web task, you have any URL REST API calls, you can use this one. So this is also very important because most of the time we get the requirement to bring the data using REST API. So this is the one. Then you have SD Insight. Okay, Arju is asking one more question, like what is your experience using SSIS packages in a pipeline, specifically in terms of execution speeds? Uh, Execution speeds will actually depend upon your SSIS packages. Uh, it will not make any like bigger impact if you're bringing it to Azure, but there are certain things that you need to be really careful with if you're bringing it to Azure. One thing is third party. If you are using any third party tool, there is a URL. You have to make sure that you are that those third party things are something that you can bring it to Azure. But most of the third party tools can be brought up to Azure, but still you need to check that. Otherwise, that can lead to some problem. Otherwise, in terms of performance and all, it all depends on your pipeline, how your how your SSS package is actually designed. It will depend on that. Okay, so let's move to this. Then SD Insight, you have Hive, MapReduce, Pig, Spark, Streaming, all these things you can bring in here. Then you have iterations like filter, for each, if condition, switch, until, and then finally machine learning. So you can see you have all these transformations here, but for now we are going with copy data. So click on this. So when you bring copy data here, sometime when first time I started using, definitely I'd like to tell you guys, because I used to get confused first time when I started using. If you have kept if you have clicked on this, you will be able to see source, sync, mapping, everything. But if you click anywhere outside, this thing will go. And I used to get confused sometimes, like what is happening here, right? So you have to be careful with that. So you click on this, you provide a good name to this copy activity, and then you go to source. In your source, you know what is your source data set. In my case, I know this is DS source blob, this one. And then there is one more option here, recursively. So in case in one particular container you have multiple files, then you go ahead with recursively, or else you can just, if you are just working with one particular file, then you can just leave it. Okay, there are other things that maybe if you would like to configure all these properties, you can go ahead with that. Okay, and then and again one more thing here, that here also you can do preview data. Before proceeding further, maybe you just want to preview data if everything looks fine. So you can preview data here, and it gives you one more assurity that okay, everything is working fine. Let's go to sync. Now my sync is SQL, which is ds-sql this, right? So again, yeah. So again, you go to sync, and here again you have various properties. If in case suppose you want to have pre-copy script, now here this thing will be helpful. Now they said that in case if you don't have a table created for the CSV file that you're going to load, then you can have this pre-copy script here, like create table or anything, and then you can start running. Okay, and there is one more feature that I would like to show here, that they have added this thing, auto create table, right? So earlier this feature was not available. That's why I mentioned that you need to create the schema. Okay, but it's better to create it yourself because you want to configure the data type and all those things as per your need. So this is my destination. Go to mapping. You can import schema. Let's wait for this. And then you can see, once again, then you can see this window, and here was this name was exactly same, so it mapped automatically. And then here so you can click on drop down and you can select other column names. Okay, and then here you can select the data type also. So in this case this is int, so I can go with 32 or 64 because all the numbers are small. So that way you can select everything, and after selecting everything you can save it, and that's it, your pipeline is ready. So this is your activity and this is your pipeline. This is what I say, logical grouping. And then here you can bring in other activities also, right? I can bring in another copy activity, and I can connect this activity to this activity. So everything can be done. All these activities can be grouped together inside one pipeline. So pipeline is a logical grouping of all the activities. So anyways, I have this thing already created. So let me get rid of this as well. Okay. Now let's go to this pipeline. So this is the same pipeline that I spoke about. Here is the source. Here is the sink. You will see all the names are same. This is the mapping. I have already done the mapping. And then after this pipeline is created, everything is done. Next one is trigger. So in my case, there is one trigger already, but I'll show you how to create a new one. So you see, it will again pop up a new window. You can give a new trigger name here, and then you can select type of trigger, schedule, tumbling window, event. If you remember, I spoke about all these three types during our slides. So for now, I am going to go ahead with schedule, where again, this is the start time, and you see recurrence every one. This is the number, and these are the units. So minimum, and this is also very important. Sometimes the customers come with this expectation, can I run the pipeline every 30 seconds? Can I run the pipeline every 5 seconds? So you need to know this. You cannot run a pipeline for less than a minute. The minimum recurrence time is 1 minute, and that also you have to make sure that your pipeline will run completion will complete running the package, will complete running the pipeline within a minute, like less than a minute. Otherwise, there will be a deadlock that you are trying to schedule it every minute, but the previous one itself is not completing. It's taking suppose 2-3 minutes to complete. So that way you have to ensure that your pipeline is not taking more time than what recurrence you schedule here. So this is very important. Remember this. Okay, so you can go with minute, hours, day, weeks, months. So you can do anything. You can define end time if you have. If not, let it run. Okay, then there are like activate. You want to keep this trigger active or inactive. That option is also there. So you can go ahead with all these things, and then okay, your trigger will be ready. So now you are ready to go ahead with that. Now this is my trigger. I'll just show you. I have scheduled it for every Monday, every Sunday. Although I am going to disable it after the session, but yeah, this is the schedule. Everything is done, and now we are good to go ahead. So let's go back to Azure Data Studio once again, and let's check if we have data. We don't have any data right now. Oh, sorry, this is another table. Yeah, check. We have any data? No, we don't have any data. So next job is to go ahead and trigger now. So right now it is showing no schedule because there is no schedule right now. It is scheduled for Sunday. So click on OK, and it will start running right now. We'll have to wait for a minute for this to complete execution. I just hope I'm not going too fast on this, and I hope that all of you are able to grab everything that I'm talking about. Okay, so here is the result, and it is succeeded. Okay, so we can check this thing here also in monitor. So when I was trying earlier, there are some failures you can see, but this is the most, this is the latest one. You can see this one which ran at 4:34, means right now. Okay, so this has succeeded. So ideally, I should be getting the data here, and we have the data available here. Okay, so this is the first demo. Let's jump back to Azure portal and move to next demo, which is related to VM. Now for this demo purpose, I have created a separate VM. Let me go back to that. Okay guys, so yeah, this is one virtual machine that I've created for you. And this is again, if you have been already working on Azure, then uh, there is a new feature which has come like a SQL Server 2019. So I have used SQL Server virtual machine for you. I'll show you this also. Maybe you would like to play around with that. I'll not take much time here, but you can search for SQL Server 2019 virtual machine. Sorry, you just see 2019 and you see here on Windows Server. So I use Windows Server, so you can click on this and then you can go to create and you can fill in all the details again. Same, there is nothing much here. You can just fill in username, password. If you want to add some disks here, you can go ahead and add. You can add some networking. If you already have a virtual network, it's fine. Otherwise, you can create a new virtual. Okay, so yeah, you can click on this and then that way you can create. And how, like why I wanted to cover this, because this is a new feature on Azure, which the SQL Server 2019 has come up with big data clusters. So in case if you want to play around with that. Oh, yes. So this is one thing, like I have several resources. One question is from Allison that I have several sources from vendors that require my IP to be whitelisted if it fits into your schedule. Can you address if that's something that can be done in Data Factory? Yes. So basically IP whitelisting is not done for Data Factory. It will be done for either the source or the destination. Like you want to access the source, then in this case, this is the SQL database, this is my destination, and here you have IP firewall, and I have done whitelisting of all the IPs for this demo purpose. You can go to set server firewall and you can see here, okay, these are my IPs that I have set, okay, and this is the one that I have set up for all right now. So this is not safe, we should not do this, but I have just done it for demo purpose. After that I'll be removing this, but you can just check your IP and you can ask. Yeah, so Ellison, if you don't own the source DB, you can just share your IP address with the owner or with the vendor, and you can ask them to add your IP address here. That's it. You don't have to do anything else. They will just add your IP address here, and you are good to go. But one thing you have to make sure, sometimes when you are on some internet, some maybe public internet, the IP keeps changing. One example is your mobile. In case if you are connected through your mobile hotspot, then your IP keeps changing. So you have to make sure that you provide the IP which is static. Otherwise, every time you will try to connect to this source, the IP would have changed and you will not have access. So this is very important thing. But this is the only way. You have to ask your customer, ask your vendor to add your IP to their firewall. No, IP will not come from firewall. Sorry, IP will not come from Data Factory. In Data Factory, there is no option for IP, and actually, Data Factory is not doing anything. It's just picking the source that you are providing, and if you have access to the source, Data Factory will work as it is. If you don't have access, Data Factory will not give you the access or will not do anything further. Okay, so this is one. Next one is about virtual machine. So I have created this virtual machine. Let me bring it here. Yep. So this is my virtual machine, and now I'm going to show you how you can. So I have opened this Azure portal on this virtual machine itself, and there is one reason for it. If you don't open this virtual machine here, you will not be able to install integration runtime directly. You can, like, you can install integration runtime separately and then you can pass the key. That can be done, but this is the easier way. You open the Azure portal here and then go to Data Factory. Now we are going to do the same thing. Sorry, let me go to Chrome. Yeah. Now here we are going to do exactly same thing that we did for this pipeline. This is another pipeline. We have copy activity here. We have source. Now in this source, you can see I have DSVM file name. It means I have created a new data source for this, and my new data source is this VM. So I'm going to click on new and I will try to create file. I'll search for file. This is the file system. So guys, I am doing again the same thing, but I skipped one step. I think maybe I should come from that step itself. I should come from connections, just pardon me, and then I'm going to link services. But now, as I told you, because we are coming from on-premise or virtual machine, so first we need integration runtime. Okay, now because I have already created this one, so it doesn't matter. Let me create a new one. And when you try to create a new integration runtime, you will see these two options: Azure self-hosted or Azure SSIS. So right now we are going with Azure self-hosted. Continue, and this one is self-hosted, which will install uh, this integration runtime on your machine. Click on continue. Now you give a name here. Okay, any name is fine. You can click on create. Moment you go here, then you will see there are two options. One is express setup and one is manual setup. In express setup, when you click on this, it will try to download, install and integrate the keys all together on your machine, that you don't have to do anything. But for that you need to have admin access. Otherwise, like if you are not the, if you if you don't have enough privilege, enough access, then this will fail, saying you don't have enough permission. Another option, you download it on your machine. You can just click on this. It will open another URL. One second. Okay, so this is opening that URL. Okay, you can go here, you can download it from this URL, and then once you have downloaded, you can install it on your machine. So let me go back here. Yeah, so once you have completed downloading and you have completed installation, then it will ask you for the keys. You can copy this key here and then you can paste it there. So because I have already done, so I can't show you that, but for your sake I have kept the screenshots. So when you will try to install, it will show you this screenshot, the download integration runtime. Okay, next it will show you install integration runtime, and then next it will show you this screen. So on this screen you will enter your key, same key that you copied from here. And once you do that, it's done. Like your work is done. You don't have to be worried about anything else. Yeah. So once it is done, you can just close it and your integration runtime is ready. Now in my case, because I created but I did not complete the process, that's why it is saying unavailable. So I'll just go ahead and delete it because I don't need it right now. So this is a very simple process. Now you know that you will be able to, so you are connected to your on-premise now. Once your integration runtime will be successful. We completed integration runtime. Next we go to linked services. In linked services, we click again new and we try to click on file. Click on file system and then continue, and this time you will go to connect via integration runtime and you will not select the default one. You will select VM integration runtime, the new integration runtime that you have created. Once you do this, you will go to your source where the file is. So I have kept this source here in my F folder. So let's do this. You provide username and password for your machine. And again, same thing, you can use Key Vault for your password. But for now, I'll go ahead with this. And then you can do test connection. Now, if this is successful, it means your Azure environment is successfully able to interact with your virtual machine. Okay, so let's cancel this because I have already done this. And okay, and yeah, this is the source that I have already created, linked services. So you can see this is the same thing, no change, but I already have it. Now next one is dataset. Now let's go to dataset. Again, I'll do the same thing. I know this looks like redundant process, but you have to do this. You select delimited file, continue, then your linked services. This is your linked service that we created just now. Click on this, and again it is asking first res header. Remember this first res header, and it is already pointing to this source. So you can actually browse it and check if it is correct. Yep, you can see this one is correct. So done. first row as header, and you can click on OK. Then your data set will be created. So let's cancel this. Let's go to data set, which is this one. Okay, now the properties are same. You will not see much difference in this property and CSV file that we created using source. The properties will be almost same. Okay, 1 second. So Kai is asking, can you show example 2 of 2 types of compute environment? So actually, next week I am covering a session where I am going to talk about the second compute environment. So that is completely about the compute environment, where I'm going to use SD Insight and even other activities, other compute environments. So maybe you can attend that session, but if I try to cover that particular topic here, then we will run out of time. But next week you can join back for that session. Sorry about that. And okay, so let's jump back to this connection. So you see most of the properties will be same. Again, first row as header. Again, you can go for preview data. Let's check if you are able to preview data here. Okay, we are able to preview data. It means so far so good. Everything is fine. And this time again, my destination is this. Okay, so my connection is same. I have just created a different table on the same Azure SQL, and this is the one. Okay, you can see preview data. There will be no data right now. You can see, and that's it. After doing that, same thing. Uh, we'll go to create pipeline. We have source and destination now. We go to copy activity. In copy activity, we have source, which is our DSVM file. Sync is the new table. Okay, this one, ds-best VM SQL ADF demo. You can open to check in case if you have any confusion or anything, you can just check that, yeah, this is the correct table that you have selected. And after that, schema. So again, you will go to schema. So right now, like you see, it's not showing any schema here, but you can click on that import schema. Oh, sorry, this is for source. I had to go to mapping. So you come to mapping, and I have already done this mapping. So you see, this is the mapping columns from source, and these are the columns from destination. So again, I have mapped. You can change the types, you can change the source, whatever you want. You can again preview source here, similar things done. And after all these things, last thing that you need to do is trigger, right? So let's go to trigger again, try to create a new one. So I already have one, so let's not jump back again to the same thing. So we have, you can give a trigger name. You can set the recurrence. Again, I have set every week, run it on Sunday, no end date. That's it, done. Okay. So click on OK or cancel. So now I have my trigger available. Everything is done. Now I am just going to trigger this one. Now still I don't have anything here, so let it start running. And I'll go back to my Azure Data Studio now. So this was my table, and now you can see the data has come here. Okay, so this was the second demo where we spoke about connecting to the the source from on-premise. So this was a virtual machine that I used. Okay, and next one, just one moment. I wanted to show one more thing. Yeah, I just wanted to show SQL Server. Let me do that. So Arju is asking one question: is the type column showing automatically under mapping? No, Arju, we have to do it manually. If the names are same, if the names are exactly same, it will map automatically. We don't have to do anything. Maybe you just want to change the data types. Otherwise, everything will be automatically mapped. In my case, the names were a little different, so it will not be able to pick the names automatically. One example was the first column was year, so it mapped that year column from the source to destination automatically, but other columns I had to do manually. And this is SQL Server. Uh, yeah, so this one is Management Studio on Azure VM. Thanks, Arju, for the feedback. I am trying to show you even this SQL. Let me try to check if it's working. Meanwhile, let me show you one more demo. There is one more thing. Let me get rid of this VM right now. Okay, I wanted to show you this. Source. Now, if I go to source here, one more thing I wanted to show that like wildcard folder path, when I click on this, you can see here it is asking me add dynamic content. So when it is asking me dynamic content, it means you can give parameters. You can define a new parameter. Either you can select something directly from this system variables that you have. You can see all these functions, system variables. So either you can use directly or else you can create a new one, user defined parameter. So like test, give a default value, string it is test. Okay, save it, and then here you will use this one. Yeah, this. So it will appear here the moment you will create, then you can select this. Now this test parameter has been created on pipeline level. So you can click on finish and that's it. So now you see uh, either you can pass the value directly or you can use parameter, right? And you can check these parameters here. Same parameter that we created there, you can see it has come here as well. So this is helpful when you are working in with multiple environments. So sometimes what happens, uh, you don't want to save the user name, mainly sorry, the server name. In our case, suppose this is sync, and I am coming to this part. Let's go to open, and it will ask you for the connection. Okay, so this one, you see here server name where it is asking for domain name. This also, instead of passing hard code, you can just create a dynamic thing. You can click on this. I will say SQL server and then pass the default connection string that you have. That's it. And then that parameter also will appear on your pipeline level or your data, sorry, activity level. And that way you can parameterize even domain name. You can parameterize database name. You can parameterize server name, anything, even username you can parameterize. So everything can be parameterized here. So this is one thing I wanted to show quickly, and that's it. And one last thing, um, somebody asked, I think Nagesh asked me how to handle failures, right? Let's go here. So now suppose here I have another pipeline. I try to create here and click on this. Now you see this one. By default, if you try to connect these two activities, you will see directly here that it comes as green. So the green shows success, but you can right click on this arrow and it will show you failure completion script. So you can choose what will happen if this activity fails? So if I click on this failure, it means then if this pipeline will fail, so this activity will fail, then it will trigger this one. So that way we can use maybe mail. Sorry, it's not here. It was in data flow, I think. But we can use custom activity here, which is batch service. So if you want to perform some kind of operation, if this thing fails, right? So let me delete this. And if something fails, you want to move to custom activity to perform certain operations, then you can move here, right? And then you can see there are other options also here, which is completion, which is skipped. So you can decide what you want to do with the pipeline in case of any of these activities, in case of success, failure, completion, or skipped. So that's it. Now, if you are interested, you can join my next week's session where I will talk about how to use Data Factory for um, copying millions of files from a blob or even from on-premise to SQL, zip files actually. So that's very important that you can unzip all those things on fly and you will be able to uh, copy the data. Okay, so I have a couple of questions here. Let me take one by one. So Zubin is asking from the monitor and author main screen, there is a copy data shortcut icon. It seems to be limited functionality. What conditions would that wizard be helpful? Built from scratch. Okay, so this one is helpful. Let's go to monitor. So if you go to monitor, you will be able to go to these pipelines. Okay, and then from here, if anything fails, you will see a comment box here. Let me show you this. Like this one has failed, and this will give you the detailed information about this error, that what happened, what went wrong, right? So this gives almost like very clear instruction, not very vague instruction. So that way it will be helpful and you will be able to keep track of this. Another thing is you have the options to select here, like when, like timeline, like when you want to check all the pipelines starting from like maybe last month or maybe last year or maybe yesterday. So you can select that timeline, time zone, and then here also you can check including reruns or everything or latest runs. So these things are there in list and Gantt. So basically you can see even on chart basis. This is again a new feature. Earlier it was only list. So it's not like too much of information here, but at least it will give you the idea that how many pipelines failed and what was the actual reason for the failure. Otherwise, another thing that you can go to Azure portal itself and go to Data Factory. And here you can see most of these activities. That pipeline runs, that will show you all the like KPIs that you want to see. And here activity runs and then trigger runs. Here you can see about integration, runtime memory, all these details you can see here itself. These are like built-in KPIs that they're showing on this dashboard. Okay, Zubin, I hope that I answered your question. Okay, Zubin has another question. A specific issue we saw in initial testing was forcing a filter. Okay, so Zubin, your question was related to copy activity directly for copying the data from on-premise. Am I correct? Yeah, so same thing you can do. You can go here. Let me go to my home. And Kai is asking meanwhile that can you show how to work with Databricks and how to handle large number of streaming ingestion from multiple sources? Yeah, Kai, so tomorrow actually I'm taking another session on Databricks where I am doing sentiment analysis using Databricks. So maybe you can join that session. Same time. Okay, so when I click on this, I think they've changed some UI here, or maybe something is wrong with the browser. Otherwise, it will show you the copy activity where it will take you to the source destination. You'll be able to perform all those things directly. I think they've changed the UI somehow. Even if not, like you can go to this new pipeline. Let me try to do this. Uh, Go to copy activity, go to source. Then from here, you will have to start from scratch. So basically, you go to source data set. Suppose I am new here. I go to file, right? I select on file system, continue. I select on delimited, continue. Then it will ask you linked services. Do you have linked services? Suppose I don't have anything. I'm starting from scratch. I'll go to new. And again, you will come here. It will ask you like connect via integration runtime. Okay. So here you see because you have created it's there. Otherwise, again you can click on new here, and it will again start giving you one by one step. So again you go continue. So you can see by default now it is creating integration runtime for you. Okay, and then let me cancel this. So it will create integration runtime here itself, and then you will give the path for your file which is available on your virtual machine. Give username, password, and once you are done with that, again your link services will be created. Then you will go back, like you will complete that, and your source will be done. So basically same thing, like instead of going step by step to link to integration runtime, then to linked services, then to data set, and then to pipeline, instead of going that way, you can directly use copy data copy data activity, and you can start from there. So that is also one of the option. But like I know it used to be there. When you click on copy, it used to directly take you to one UI, but right now it's not coming. Maybe they have changed it recently. I'm not sure about this. I will check and I will let you know. So any other question, guys? Okay, I think nothing more. So thank you everyone once again for joining this call, and I hope you get to learn something new today. Tomorrow again, I am taking a session on Databricks, like doing sentiment analysis using Twitter data on Databricks. So you can join that session, and this video will be made available in a couple of days on azuredataplatform.com. Same way, this video is available right now from the previous session. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Aju. Thank you, Joseph. Thanks, Zubin. Thanks, Nagesh. So thank you, everyone. Hope to see you again in my next session. Have a great day. Bye-bye.